Hello, everyone. My name's Pam, and I'm an online English teacher, a study abroad consultant, and I specialize in the PTE, the Pearson Test of English. And if you're worried about losing marks in the speaking section of the PTE because of your accent, then I think today's session will be good news for you. So we are going to today look a little bit about the changes that are happening to the PTE now. From August 7th, there were some big changes to the exam, and you may need to know a little bit about those. And I want to start by giving you a little background about the PTE and why that's important and what that means for you and your score. And we will dive deep into one of the two new question types in the speaking test. So PTE now has two new question types in the speaking test. One is called Summarise Group Discussion, and the other one, Respond to a Situation. If you check my YouTube channel, you can see I have already made videos giving you strategies for both of those new question types. But today, I'd like to go live. So if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments. But also, I want to give you some more realistic examples of what it's like to answer a Summarise Group Discussion question. So I'll give you two Summarise Group Discussion style questions and two of my answers. And that will include a template, which I'll put in a Google Doc in the comments after we post this live. Okay, so I hope you're going to enjoy. I hope some more people are going to come and join with us and watch, and you can ask and interact in the comments. But I think it will be a really useful session for all of you. And I just want to say that next week, I plan to go live and do the same thing for Respond to a Situation. Okay? All right, so let's start with PTE. What is it? It is the Pearson Test of English, and it's one of the biggest international tests of English in the world. You've probably, if you are here watching me now, you've probably at least heard of the IELTS exam, International English Language Testing System, IELTS. Now, IELTS is the biggest international English test in the world. IELTS is useful in almost every country for getting into universities or colleges, technical colleges too, so that you can prove your level of English can handle the work there. Okay, so that's where it started. And it's also useful for immigration. So if you want to immigrate to countries like Australia or the UK, even the US tends to use another test called TOEFL, but IELTS is often accepted. Canada. So for immigration anyway, you're looking for Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK. IELTS is big. Now, PTE is an alternative to IELTS, and it's almost as big. It's getting there. It's growing. And you may need to decide which is better for you for university or for immigration. Should you do PTE? Should you do IELTS? Which one will give you the better score? The truth is they'll probably both give you quite a similar score, but the big difference is that PTE is mainly scored by AI, mainly scored by computing systems, whereas IELTS uses human examiners. Now, as of August 7th, there's some change to this. PTE is starting to use human examiners sometimes. Not for every question, not for every test, but sometimes they will use human examiners. Okay, so this means that you will have to change your strategy just a little bit with how you approach PTE. The main difference is that when you are speaking to a computer, the most important thing that PTE could recognize was your pronunciation. Okay, now they try all sorts of things in the test to make it so that they're, scoring your content and your fluency. But at the end of the day, pronunciation is super important for PTE compared to IELTS. A human examiner will let go some pronunciation errors and they'll focus much more on the content of what you're saying. So traditionally, if you're better at expressing ideas fluently, you should do IELTS. And if you're better at speaking clearly and enunciating, you're better at doing PTE. But the new changes have tipped the balance a little bit. So now, if you have a strong accent, but you're still good at fluently expressing ideas, it's a little better. Okay, it's still not as easy to get a good score in that as IELTS, but a little better than it was. Now I see Mohammed Muhib. Hello. You have joined my chat there and you're saying, ma'am, I'm weak in grammar. What should I do to improve my English grammar? Mohammed, good for you for trying, right? I think there's a lot of things you can do. It seems like your level is probably at least intermediate now. If you are already at an intermediate level, then you're best off correcting errors than starting from scratch. So doing things like taking a page of your writing and taking it to a teacher or ChatGPT if you can't afford a teacher, and asking them to analyze what are your main errors and finding out what are the errors that you make again and again. Because anyone who is intermediate or higher, you guys have all these errors that are stuck in your mind like fossils that you repeat and repeat. So you want to identify what they are, and then you want to analyze why you need to change them. And then you want to repeat and repeat and repeat until you can break the habit, because that's the most difficult thing at your level, is breaking habits. You've got years of using wrong grammar. You need to then put in the effort to change that habit. Okay. And hello, Set Jibon Mondal from Bangladesh. I'm glad that there's some people interacting. Guys, if you have questions about PTE, jump in. I'm happy to answer as we go, okay? But for now, I'll just keep on going with my blathering on about PTE and saying, okay, the changes that happened on August 7th, all right? 1, there'll be some human examiners sometimes checking things, okay? 2, there are 2 new speaking question types. Now, the aim of those 2 new speaking question types is to make PTE a better way of testing your real communication skills. Okay, so they are not similar to, PTE has repeat sentence and read aloud questions where you're essentially just being tested on how well you can pronounce things. The new question types are nothing like that. You have to give good content, and that is much more important than the way you are pronouncing. Okay? All right, Lone Survivor is saying, hello, Pam. I wrote IELTS last month and I got 7 band. Should I go for IELTS again or PTE? Well, hello, Lone Survivor. Firstly, I want to say collocations in English, you should say, I took the IELTS last month, okay? So generally we should say, take a test, take an exam. Right is correct, but it's very, very old-fashioned. Okay, so you took the IELTS last month and you're laughing. Good. I'm glad I didn't offend you. Okay, and you got band 7, and band 7 is good. Band 7 is a really good score. I'm wondering what score you need. Do you need to get an 8 or a 9? For most universities, 7 should be enough. You need band 8, really? Wow, they're getting tough these days, aren't they? Look, it depends on what your strengths and weaknesses are. If you are very well spoken and your pronunciation is good, you might get a better speaking score in the PTE. PTE, I think, is an easier test to prepare for. IELTS is a little bit more involved. So you're not a student, you're going for PR. PR. But I thought IELTS band 7 again should be enough to get you some decent points. Band 8 is what you need, hey? Well, maybe you want to consider IELTS general training. Depends which country you are going for. If you do IELTS general training, you can get a slightly easier writing test, but most of the test is the same as IELTS academic. So, yeah, Australia. Okay. IELTS general training, maybe. Depends on your strengths and weaknesses. I tend to recommend most people should do PTE because it's a simpler test to understand. So you can prepare more easily for it than you can for IELTS. But yeah, if you have a very strong accent, maybe IELTS is better for your speaking score. That's probably the only real difference. Okay, so I have repeated that same point over and over again, guys. Let's move on to something else that is going to maybe help you, and say that the other big change that I want you all to be aware of with the PTE exam is that you should avoid using long, crazy templates. Okay, there are so many templates for essays, for summarized written text, for many different question types that you can find on the internet. And those templates are often not flexible enough to correctly apply to different questions. So if you use those templates, you will probably not get a good content score, and you will probably be flagged to these new human examiners that PTE is using to check. I mean, PTE really does not want you to use those templates because it doesn't show that you are thinking and actually producing language yourself, right? So if you're just memorizing a bunch of difficult words and you're not actually addressing the topic, that's a red flag for template use. PTE will not like it. You will lose points. And they're proving that now by paying human examiners. It's cheaper for them not to do that, guys. So they really want to find people who are using them. So avoid long, complex templates. I still suggest templates in my lessons, but my templates are really just academic format. Yeah, I'm just trying to give you a structure to use. You should still use your own words and expand upon what I give you with the templates. Okay, so Lone Survivor is saying, I have an English accent. I lived mostly in Britain. Well, then, yes, I think you should do the PTE. If you have a British, well, it depends. Which English accent do you have? But yeah, if you are well-spoken and clear, then you'll get benefit out of doing PTE, I think, over doing IELTS, probably. And it's easier. Okay, so like I said, we are going to dive today into one of the two new question types. So remember, there's Summarise group discussion and there is respond to a situation. I have already made videos about the strategies for both of them. Please check my YouTube channel. Today, what I want to do is look at Summarise group discussion and give you some more examples, dive into it a little bit more realistically, okay? Next week, we'll do the same thing with respond to a situation. Okay, so first of all, what is Summarise group discussion? Feel free to jump in the comments if you know. What do you have to do in the Summarise group discussion section of the PTE test? Basically, you have to listen to 3 people discussing a topic, and you have to summarize it. Easy, right? So for about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, you'll hear 3 people talking. And during that time, you should be taking notes. Then after that, you have 10 seconds only, 10 seconds to think. And then you have 2 minutes to summarize. So I think, wow, is it really summarizing if the original recording is 3 minutes and you have to give 2 minutes of an answer? There's not much summarizing. You basically are repeating it. But you will need to hit the main points. Okay, so with Summarise group discussion, you are trying to give the main point that each of the 3 speakers has said. But most importantly, and here is the thing that I cannot stress enough, you want to say what the group dynamic was. Okay, so what does group dynamic mean? That means, were they agreeing? Were they disagreeing? You know, how many people were for the idea? How many people were against the idea? What was the feeling in the room? And that is the point of them having this. Instead of just retell lecture where you are repeating what one person said or summarize spoken text, yeah, they're checking that you can understand when there are 3 or more people in a room, and that you can then recognize the flow of the conversation. So that's really important. Okay, before I move on, I'm going to check these comments again. Hello, Sagar Chabra. You've said, ma'am, in essay, we saw 3 and 4 categories like advantages and disadvantages, opinion, problem solving. My question is that is your flexible template still work on these? Okay, so Saga, what you're basically asking is that there are many different kinds of essays, and you want to know if my essay template will work for all of them. And I will say confidently yes, because my essay template is so simple. It is not really going to give you a lot of words, but it's going to give you a skeleton, a basic structure that will work for any kind of essay. All right, so check my essay writing videos on YouTube, and I'm confident that you can use that for any PTE essay question at least. I've tried them on heaps. It always works. But yeah, you could get a range of scores with that essay template, though. If you rely on that template to get high scores, it won't work. It's just a basic structure that will get you the structure points. Okay, you still need to add vocabulary, grammar, ideas. You still need to add all of that yourself. And there's no way around that. If you try and memorize a template that has all of that bedded in, then that's where you're going to have problems, because those templates will not work in every single situation. Okay. Blue Spotlight says, hey, Pam, I'm new here and I'm from Ghana. I want to give the PTE a try. How do I start, please? I mean, start with the listening, reading, speaking, and writing. What should I do? Oh, that's a reasonable question, Blue Spotlight. I am in the process of writing a PTE book. I hope my book will be published at the end of August. If any of you guys have requests for things you want in the book, now is the time, because I can still fit a few more things in. But one of the things I have in that book is a 4-week plan to prepare yourself for the PTE. And in that, I suggest going from the beginning of the test to the end of the test in terms of skills. Start with speaking. The test starts with speaking. I think you should start with speaking. Generally. One reason is that, well, I think that's just language, isn't it? We start with the communication, the speaking, and the listening. They've put listening at the end, I'm sure of it, because you're tired by the end of the test and listening is easier than the rest of it. And I think that's probably the same with when you're studying. You'll get exhausted. So you should probably do the harder stuff first. Speaking and writing, I tend to think generally is harder. I know that often for my students, getting a high reading score seems to be a harder thing, but learning what to do for the speaking and the writing, I think, is harder. And you need more time to get the practice at the pronunciation with the speaking. You certainly need more time to get the structure of essay and summarized written text for the writing. So start with those. Okay. And Lone Survivor says, yes, your templates are very simple and don't seem like templates at all. That's the idea, Lone Survivor. I didn't know whether to call them templates. I've called them templates as something so you guys can understand what I mean. But they're not really templates. They're just basic structures, okay? They're just academic structures for an essay or general ideas for how to handle a speaking question, whatever. So call them what you will. They're not dangerous, okay? All right. And Lone Survivor says, I believe we have to pick up information from various personnel in the group discussion and summarize it. I wouldn't say personnel, they're not working there, but yes, Lone Survivor, you have to pick up information from the different people in a group and summarize it. Okay? So let us move on. Remember, summarize group discussion, you'll hear 3 people having a discussion. And when you hear the beep, you'll have 10 seconds to prepare and 2 minutes to give your answer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to be 3 different people, and I'm going to give you an example. As I do, I want you guys to try and take notes. Maybe take notes in the comments. It would be interesting to share your notes, right? Let's see what everyone gets, okay? So I will use a different voice for each of the different people I am pretending to be. Maybe speaker 1, I'll go up a bit high and go up with my voice. Speaker 2, I'll sound mature. And speaker 3, I'll try and sound deeper, more like maybe like a man. Okay, so you can recognize the different speakers in that way. All right, so let's go for it. This is going to be the first Summarise group discussion question, and I will be speaker 1, 2, and 3. Everyone get ready, take notes, okay? Beep. Since the pandemic, I've been taking most of my courses online, and I have to say I really like it. It saves commuting time, I can work at my own pace, and I feel less stressed because I'm in my own space. Plus, recorded lectures mean I can go back and review if I miss something. That's true. But for me, online learning has been a bit isolating. I miss the energy of being in a classroom and having spontaneous discussions. Also, it's harder to focus when I'm at home. There are too many distractions. I think I learn better when I'm physically present. I agree with both of you. I enjoy the flexibility of online study, but I think in-person classes push me to participate more. When I'm on campus, I'm more engaged and I meet new people. It's not just about the content, it's also about networking and building relationships. That's a fair point, but think about students who live far from campus or have part-time jobs. Online learning can make education more accessible to them. Not everyone can afford the time or cost of daily travel. True, but there's also the issue of practical courses. Things like lab work or performance-based classes just don't translate well online. You lose that hands-on element. Maybe a hybrid approach is the answer. Keep the flexibility of online lectures, but include regular in-person sessions for interaction and practical work. That way, students get the best of both worlds. Okay. All right, good. So, guys, that was an example of a Summarise group discussion question acted out in 3 different voices by me. Now, I wonder if anyone took up my challenge and tried to take notes for this. Did anyone take notes? Please don't be shy. If you did and you want to check them, it would be really useful for all of us, I think, to look at what you've done as a note and pick it apart. Not to attack you, but so that we can all learn from each other. So does anyone feel brave enough? No? Sup, Batman? This is your notes? Or these are your notes, I should say. I am an English teacher after all. Okay. Look, if no one else is going to do it, I'll put in an example of what kind of notes I think would be good, and I'll put them in the chat box. Let me just get them now. I am going into Google Docs and copy pasting. You need to be patient with me, please. This is actually my first live my first live about PTE on YouTube. I go live on Instagram every Sunday just for general English conversations. So if anyone wants to join me then or there, please do. It's Neo English with Pam on Instagram. Now it looks like I have to split my notes into 2 to fit in the comments. Okay, let's try that then. Here's the first half. And here is the second half. Okay, so you can see from my notes, what I've done is I have just taken, oh, no, that's not all of my notes. Wait a second, guys. Here's the most important part of my notes. Should be this. There you go. Okay, so the most important thing that you need to write down first is the main idea. Okay, so I've written down online learning versus in-person. That was the topic of the conversation. That was the topic of the discussion. And that is crucial. You must write that down, of course. Then after that, I think the best way to take notes is to write 1, 2, 3, and then just next to, speaker 1, speaker 2, speaker 3, write short notes about what they've said, what's their position on it. So for example, we had the general topic of online learning, And then speaker 1 likes online and a couple of reasons why. Saves time, less stress, recorded lectures. Speaker 2, missed class energy, harder focus, prefers in-person. Speaker 3, hybrid view, online flexible, blah, blah, blah. Like this kind of thing, yeah? So you just keep taking notes like that. Oh, and good on you, lone survivor. You have written some notes. Yes, good on you. And you've done, as you can see, lone survivor's notes are almost the same as mine. Okay, thank you for being brave enough to do that. And great. Okay, you've just not made it too complicated. You're just writing down, as fast as you can, what each person has basically said, what their position is. Great. So once you've got those kinds of notes, I think it's fairly easy to sub in the notes into the template or the structure that I'm giving you. Okay, so let me just post my template in here now. So I'm going into Google Docs again, just a second. Let me come back and see if YouTube will let me put this in the comments. No, it's still too long. YouTube needs to make comments longer. This is annoying. Okay. Hang on a second. Here you go. So template part 1, template part 2. Okay, so my basic idea with the template is that step 1, you give the topic. Step 2, you give the group dynamic. Step 3, you then start talking about what each different speaker said. Okay, so step 1, the speakers talked about, and in this case, the speakers talked about online learning versus in-person learning. Done. There's your first sentence. Then you want to give the group dynamic. So that sentence will have to be a little bit different depending on each different question. So sometimes you can say that 2 of them agreed, but 1 disagreed strongly. Sometimes you can say that they all agreed. Sometimes you may need to say they each had a different view. It's going to be different for each one. Let me just remind myself of what I thought would be good for this one. And I thought for this particular one, it would be nice to say 2 speakers disagreed strongly about the value of online classes, while the third argued that we should combine the best of both online and in-person learning. Because you want to give that dynamic, yeah? Speaker A and the first speaker and the second speaker did disagree. One thought online learning was good, one thought it was bad, and the third tried to, compromise and bring it all together. So the key point is that you're giving that dynamic. Whatever language you use to give it, give the dynamic second, because if you wait until the end, you may run out of time or you may forget to give that dynamic. And giving the dynamic is part of what will give you strong points for this question type. Okay, so I am going to give you a sample answer as I think would be good for that question type, just so that you've got something to work from, okay? So you heard the question, beep, then you've got 10 seconds to just organize your thoughts, and then you would say something like this. The speakers talked about online learning versus in-person classes. 2 speakers disagreed strongly about the value of online classes, while the third argued that we should combine the best of both online and in-person learning. 1 speaker said that studying online saves commuting time, reduces stress, and allows students to work at their own pace. They added that recorded lectures are useful for reviewing lessons and make education more accessible for people who live far from campus or have part-time jobs. Another suggested that in-person learning is better for focus, energy, and spontaneous discussion. They felt that being in a classroom helps students concentrate and keeps them more engaged. They also mentioned that some subjects, such as lab work or performance-based courses, cannot be delivered effectively online. A third speaker was of the opinion that a hybrid approach is the best solution. They agreed that online learning offers flexibility, but believed that face-to-face sessions encourage participation and help students build relationships. In their view, combining online lectures with regular in-person activities would give students the benefits of both methods. And that's it. Now, you can go back and time me, but I think that was probably about 1 minute, 30 seconds. If I had spoken a little slower, that would hit the full 2 minutes. And honestly, having done PTE myself, having taught it to many people who have taken the PTE, I think even though I stumbled once, and even though I think it was not the full 2 minutes, I believe that would still be getting me a full PTE score. That would be getting me the 90. And that's just because I am answering the question fully. I've given the group dynamic the topic, and I have given every person's position clearly. And I spoke fluently. My pronunciation was good enough. My grammar was correct. I used a range of vocabulary. Okay, so this is the kind of thing that you need to do for Summarise group discussion. Okay. Now, Lone Survivor is asking me, I think you understand me by now. Do you think that I'm on the right track of practice? Appreciate it if you'd give me some feedback. Well, I don't know if I do understand you yet, Lone Survivor, but yeah, I think your note-taking was good. So you're on the right track there. PTE is a pretty involved test. I would say for most of you that the question types that I think you really, really should be focusing on when you're preparing are the essay. Nobody prepares enough for the essay. Describe image, retell lecture, and weirdly enough, reorder paragraph. Nobody prepares enough for reorder paragraphs, I think, because you can pick up some easy points once you crack the trick of what actually they are looking for there. So watch my video on reorder paragraph. I was so excited when I found out how to do that one, because you expect those paragraphs to follow logical progression, and you're trying to look for a topic sentence followed by examples, and PTE doesn't always work that way. They're focused much more on making the pronouns link back and refer back to words in previous sentences. So anyway, watch my video on reorder paragraphs. I think that's going to help a lot. And if you focus on those particular question types in your preparation, I think that helps a lot, because the other question types, you will get a good score or get a bad score based on how good your English is. So for things like write from dictation, or many of the other question types, read aloud, if you've got good English, you'll get a good score. If you've got bad English, you'll get a bad score. There's not too much you can do with strategy. There's a little bit, but not much. But with the questions that I've mentioned, essay, what else did I mention? Essay, summarize written text. If I didn't mention that, I should have. Essay, summarize written text, describe image, retell lecture, and reorder paragraph. Those 5. Focus in on those. There you go. Okay, Marianne Julia, hello, says, just want to ask how many points SGD and RTS will contribute to speaking. So the 2 new question types, summarize group discussion and respond to a situation. Great question, Marianne Julia. And I'm sorry, but Pearson don't release that kind of detail exactly enough. I have read through all of their scoring report and scoring sheet. They don't want to make it so clear, because they don't want people to be able to game the system so much. But you can tell that they don't impact your score as much as, for example, describe image or retell lecture. Not as much. If your speaking score is very low, then yeah, it's good to get on top of these, because these are, I think, these 2 question types are a good way to pick up your speaking points. Like I said, especially if you've got a strong accent. So it's a good way to pick up speaking. But things like, describe image will also give you points in other sections of the test. Okay. Lone Survivor says, got to ask, will my marks be down if I speak slowly in the test? Short answer, yes. Long answer, it's complicated. How slow is too slow? If you are a slow speaker in real life, I recommend you speak at the faster pace, the faster end of your normal pace. But I know a lot of people who take PTE come from South Asia, come from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and those cultures, you guys tend to speak quite fast. They're fast-speaking cultures. So you probably should slow down to fit the, and PTE will say that it's not culturally biased, and I will argue that every test in the world is culturally biased. And I think PTE is very much biased towards that Anglo-Saxon mode of communication. So the same kind of speed at which I am speaking to you, vary your pace a little sometimes for emphasis, but this kind of pace, I think, is good for PTE. If you go too much faster, then you lose clarity. If you go too much slower, then you lose fluency. So you have to know yourself. And that's another thing that I would recommend, guys. If you want to improve your speaking score, use some of the AI tools that are out there now to check yourself. Excuse me. Go into Google Docs, use Google voice typing, and talk to it and see if it can recognize what you're saying. And that's good for checking if your pronunciation is clear. Okay, that will force you into being clearer in your speech. It won't help you with fluency. There's no great AI for fluency yet, but there is a fairly nice app called Yoodli. I'm going to put the name in the chat box here too. Yoodli, Yoodli. It's a great fun app. It's actually for business people who want to practice presentations. But you guys could use it for practicing for PTE, because what it does is allows you to give a speech, and then it will give you feedback on your speech, including things like counting how many times you say including giving you tips about grammar errors and pronunciation errors. So give it a try. It has a freemium brand. I think you can use it for free for a little before you have to start paying. I've never paid for it. I've managed to just find use out of the free version. So I think that can be helpful. Okay, guys, we are taking a bit longer to get through things than I thought we would, which is good because you're asking questions. But I think I'm going to quickly dive into our second example Summarise group discussion question, okay? So again, I'm going to act out being 3 different people to give you a sample Summarise group discussion question, and then I'll give you a sample answer. But I really want you guys to try taking notes as you are listening to me so that you can practice what kind of answer you would give. And then use the template, which I already put, scroll back in the comments, use the template to try and think, how would you put this all together to make an answer? All right, let me find my question first. Okay. Here we go. Oh, so remember, before it starts, you're going to hear something like, where are we? You will hear 3 people having a discussion. When you hear the beep, summarize the whole discussion. You will have 10 seconds to prepare and 2 minutes to give your response. I've been trying to eat healthier, but the cost is such a challenge. Fresh produce, lean meats, and whole grains all seem more expensive than processed foods. It's frustrating because I want to take care of my health, but I also have to stick to my budget. I know exactly what you mean. I've found that planning meals ahead of time helps. If I decide what I'm cooking for the week, I can buy in bulk and avoid last-minute takeaways. It's not perfect, but it saves money and reduces waste. I think another problem is that people don't always know how to cook with inexpensive ingredients. For example, beans, lentils, and frozen vegetables can be really affordable. But if you're not used to cooking with them, you might not think of them as an option. That's true. And sometimes it's about time too. When you get home tired from work, it's easier to just grab something ready-made, even if it's less healthy. One trick I use is cooking in large batches and freezing portions. That way I always have something healthy ready to go. It's a bit of work on the weekend, but it pays off during the week. I guess the key is finding a balance. Maybe people need more education about affordable healthy meals. Community workshops or online tutorials could help. And if stores ran promotions on healthy foods, it might make it easier for more people to make better choices. And then we have 10 seconds, and then you'll hear a beep. Okay? So I'm wondering, at this point, I'm going to ask, did anybody try and take notes? Let me have a look in the comments. Oh, lone survivor, you're leaving me. No, you have a busy day at work. You have to attend a few meetings. It was a valuable session and loved it. Thank you. I'm so glad. Okay, I hope to see you on my page again. And don't forget, I'm live on Instagram every Sunday night, guys. So check out my Instagram page at Neo English with Pam. Same name as my YouTube channel. Okay. All right. So if Lone Survivor's not putting in his notes, is anyone else going to try? Feel free. If you want me to give you some feedback on your note taking, it's a good opportunity. Okay. And I promise I will not embarrass anyone. I think it's just useful for all of us to learn from each other. But if none of you want to do it, that's okay, because I am going to put my notes in. So let me just copy paste, Control C, Control V, and of course, YouTube says that's too long, so it'll be in 2 separate comments. Here you go. Okay. So the most important note is that I wrote down healthy eating on a budget. That's the topic. So remember, it's always topic first. And then the second thing you need to do is what? The second thing you need to do is to express the group dynamic. Okay? So that's going to come from what you've got in these notes. So let's have a look. Speaker 1, healthy food expensive. Yep. Speaker 2, meal plan, bulk buy, save dollars. Speaker 3, skills gap, beans, frozen veg. And then I've put what they said again. Speaker 1, time issue. Speaker 2, batch cook. Speaker 3, education, like this. All right. So overall, what do you think the group dynamic is? Did they all agree? Did they all disagree? Did they have different things to say? How are you going to express that in your group dynamic sentence? Well, I'll tell you what I've done. Okay, so let me give you my answer to this question so that you've got an example. So I started out by saying the speakers talked about eating healthily on a budget. So there's my topic sentence. Done. That must go first. You must say the speakers talked about blah, or the speakers discussed blah, however you want to express it. Then my group dynamic sentence. They all agreed that it was difficult and each suggested different ways to deal with that. There you go. So you do have to think a little bit for that group dynamic sentence. You can't just always say 2 of them agreed, 1 disagreed, but you can do it. This is where it's really important to get it right. That's where you're going to get points. Okay, so then we move on down, and I'll give you my full answer, and you've got that as an example. And by the way, I will put a link to a Google Doc in the recording of this video so you can see the notes and the full answers in transcript, okay? So please come back and check the recording, and I'll put it in the comment box then. All right, here we go. Here is the full answer to that summarized group discussion question. The speakers talked about eating healthily on a budget. They all agreed that it was difficult, and each suggested different ways to deal with that. One speaker said that healthy food, such as fresh produce, lean meats, and whole grains, is more expensive than processed food, which makes it difficult for people to maintain a balanced diet while saving money. They confessed that ready meals were also more convenient than healthy ones. Another suggested that planning meals in advance, buying in bulk, and cooking for the whole week can reduce costs and help people avoid last-minute takeaways. They explained that these habits save both money and time and also reduce food waste. A third speaker was of the opinion that part of the problem is a lack of knowledge about affordable, healthy ingredients, such as beans, lentils, and frozen vegetables. They felt that people could benefit from more education, such as community workshops or online tutorials, and added that store promotions on healthy foods could make it easier for people to make better choices. There you go. Okay. Now, guys, one thing I want to suggest before we finish up is that one of the easiest ways to prepare for the PTE and the most effective ways to prepare for the PTE is shadowing. So feel free to use this video and shadow the 2 answers that I gave as practice. Okay, now obviously you're going to get different questions in your PTE test, but if you have shadowed this, you start to internalize the structure, my template. You start to get it stuck in your mind so that you can repeat it and make it flow more easily. Okay? All right, so there you go, shadowing, yet another tip. And remember, I am going to put that link to the Google Doc with these questions and answers in the comment section of this recording. Also, remember, I have a PTE book coming out. If anyone is interested in buying my PTE book, please contact me or my team at info@neo-English, neo-English, I should say. I'm just typing it in the chat box. If you just message waitlist, you can go on the waitlist to get my book, which will come out at the end of August. Okay, info@neo-english.com. Also, I am live on Instagram every Sunday night, and I am still here on YouTube posting new things every week for PTE, and I post daily. I post shorts, just like short, quick, fun English lessons. Okay, so 30-second English lessons daily. That can be something else that boosts your score because your general English will improve. Okay, it was great to interact with some of you and great to see that some others are just there. And I will see you again next week with Respond to a Situation. Okay, I'll go live doing Respond to a Situation. Have a great day.